Good evening and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the country get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open to the public and on the level. Tonight, as usual, we are soliciting questions and comments from you via Twitter and or our Facebook page at the Twitter handle at Mason Roundtable and or with the hashtag TMR episode 25. That's TMR episode 25. Tonight's topic is plural membership, and so in doing our introductions tonight, we will go around and introduce all of our lodge affiliations, as well as our name and any office held. I'll begin by saying that my name is John Ruark. I am the past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957, as well as a member of Herndon Lodge number 264, my mother lodge in Herndon, Virginia. I'm currently the chaplain and lodge education officer of the Patriot Lodge, and I will head it off to Jason.
Thanks, John. My name is Jason Richards, and I am the senior deacon of Acacia Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, and the senior bench warmer of the Patriot Lodge number 1957.
Official title. I love it. All right, Juan, how about you?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Juan Sepulveda. I am a member of Eola Lodge number 207 in Orlando, Florida, and that is the only lodge of which I am a member right now.
Right now.
As of this, very moment.
Okay, Nick, how about you?
Sure. Nick Johnson. I am a past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time Farmington. And I was also a past member of Faribault Lodge number 9 in Faribault, Minnesota.
Great. And Robert Johnson.
Brother Robert Johnson, the senior warden of Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois. And that is also the only Blue Lodge that I'm a member of.
Excellent. Okay, so before we get into tonight's topic, I don't think we have any Masonic news that's jumping out at the moment. No critical issues.
I have one thing from your state.
Okay,
if
go
you
ahead.
want to know about it, but there is a research priory, which is a research kind of commandery in Virginia, and I was chatting with the prior of it, Patrick, and he was just letting me know that they had just had their first meeting. So I think it is the first Knights Templar affiliated research group in the country. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Wow.
I think it's like $35 to join. So sounds like a pretty good deal.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I had not heard that. All right. Hearing no other Masonic news, let's get right into this week's topic, which is plural membership. Now, as you heard, at least Jason and I mention, and a little bit of Nick, in some jurisdictions, meaning some states, allow for multiple memberships. Usually when you get your degrees in Masonry, you join what we call a Blue Lodge. It's where you get your first 3 degrees. Now, some states allow you to, after you become a Master Mason, after you reach your 3rd degree, to optionally join another lodge in addition to the one you currently came in through. And also, depending on the jurisdiction, it can be multiple, as much as your wallet can afford. So what we'll do is we'll start to talk about what are some of the benefits and some of the negative aspects of doing that. And so to begin, let's talk about the positives. When you join more than one Blue Lodge, what are some of the benefits you can gain? Anybody at all?
Well, first and foremost, each lodge has its own particular atmosphere. So, very rarely are you going to find a lodge that fits you to a T. You may have several different interests that can only be filled by looking into several different Blue Lodges. So if you have one lodge that's more of a traditional observance type of lodge, and that is something you're really interested in, but at the same time there's another Blue Lodge that's heavily research oriented, then you can fulfill both without having to go outside into appendant bodies and things of that nature.
That beats what I was gonna say. I was just gonna say another dinner. Another
More nights out.
Yes.
There are only so many Joby meatballs and Eastern Star meatloafs that you can eat on any given week.
That's true.
Well, I'll give you a positive from here,
Right.
from Florida.
I was thinking about Joby meatballs.
You choked up a little bit there. Aw.
In here you go. In Florida, this is a state that is renowned for having snowbirds during the winter. So we have a lot of brothers that come down to Florida for the cold months, and they spend a significant amount of time down here. That allows them to have a lodge to go to while they're here, and they're not just a visitor, they're a member. So they feel at home when they come here during those months, and when they go back to their northern states, they have a home lodge over there that they can attend.
I have a friend who does that. He vacations in Florida. He owns some condos down there, and he goes down there and takes care of the condos, and he visits those lodges, and he loves it. I mean, that's where he's going to retire. So, he's already got a life membership here in Waukegan. But for him, he loves it. Loves it.
No, that's a good point.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to add that once you become a Master Mason, one of your benefits is you can travel around to other lodges that are recognized around the country, around the world, actually. So traveling, we've talked about some of the benefits there in a previous episode. But as Juan alluded to, when you actually find a lodge, a second lodge that you really like, you can still opt, if the states allow, to join that lodge as a full-on member to support that lodge and be closer to the brethren. Nick, you were going to say?
Sure, and another benefit, kind of going on to Juan's point, was the idea that the Grand Lodges also actually get a pretty big benefit, because if you are a dual member, or actually be plural member in those two states, both of them are going to get that per capita. So
Yep.
Two people win. Well, yeah,
As
two
opposed-
groups win. Yeah.
As opposed to being a dual member in the Grand Lodge, just getting twice the per capita.
Right.
Well, in Minnesota, actually, so do they actually charge you per capita for each lodge where you
That's a
are?
very good question.
'Cause
As far
here-
as I'm aware, in Virginia,
I'm
that's
pretty
the way it
sure,
goes.
yeah.
See,
Yeah,
we only have to per capita one time, for one lodge, and then the other lodge, we get that money back. So it's actually, a lot of lodges around here will do like a multiplier for their dues, so 2 times per capita, 3 times per capita.
Right.
It's actually not bad, because you can just look at it and say, well, per capita is this times 2, so I'm really just paying per capita again. I'm just getting that
And
money
so-
back.
Really quickly, I mean, without getting too deep into it, anybody who's not a member of the fraternity who's like, what's per capita? Basically, when you pay dues every year, a portion of the money, it gets divvied up into several places, I'm sure. Like, for instance, my lodge has the temple board, which is the board of directors, which is comprised of 1 or 2 members from each of the groups that meet at the temple. So we have to pay them. We put money there, and what they do with that is building maintenance and all that stuff. The per capita is funds that go to the Grand Lodge of your state that pay for your membership. And there can be any number of things that go into that. And then, of course, your lodge gets a little bit of the money. Like for us, our lodges, Waukegan gets, our dues are $60 a year. I think we get about $26.
That you
So-
keep from the total?
And for instance, I had a brother who's really close to me, actually. He's been coming to my lodge quite a bit, and he inquired. He said, I have a lifetime membership, but, I come here so often and I never really go to my home lodge. I'd like to become a plural member here. And I was like, really? That's awesome. So we went and talked to one of the senior brothers at my lodge, and he said, don't do that. It works out really well for the Grand Lodge, and it doesn't really do anything for anybody else. He goes, you already have the ability to travel and go in whatever lodge. He goes, why do you want the membership?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he kind of talked my friend out of it, and it made a lot of sense the way he presented it. You know, because it does. It works out great for Grand Lodges because they get that per capita times 2. And in his case, it's interesting because his home lodge, Mother Lodge, is actually he's a a life member already. So this would be a separate lodge that, you know, essentially you'd have one more bill every year. But
Yeah, and that's actually one of the positive aspects of joining more than one lodge, is if you really like what another lodge is doing, that's one way you can support them, right? Is to become a full-on member. When you
Right.
travel, you don't have to pay anything to visit other lodges, and that's kind of an interesting catch that we just assume everybody knows. When you travel to another lodge, it's free. I mean, that's one of the benefits you get.
Oh,
If you want
they tricked me.
Unless the dinners are catered.
That's true. But if you really support what another lodge is doing, you want to support them financially as well. And so, if you can afford it, you know, you're paying dues, possibly the same amount of dues twice, but at least you're able to give something to that effort.
That makes me think of another thing too. I'm sorry. That some brothers are completely happy attending the meetings and just being a participant of the meetings. However, there are other brothers who really enjoy being part of the leadership of a lodge. They really like being part of the different committees, and they want to feel that they're not just not just visiting, but that they're actually taking part in the whole administration of the lodge. In that case, then having the dual membership or the plural membership entitles them to be able to have a position.
right.
At least in Florida, for lodge officers, all lodge officers have to be members of the lodge in order to be considered for the chair.
Yeah, same in Virginia. Mm-hmm.
Except for the Tyler. The Tyler the only requirement is that Tyler is a Master Mason. So we can have a brother from another lodge Tyler meetings.
In Virginia, it's any appointed office can go to a member of a different lodge, but the actual elected offices, you know, junior deacon, senior deacon, up through worshipful master, have to be members of that particular lodge.
Interesting.
And one of the other little things you can't do as a visitor, but you can do as a member, is vote, like to have participate in the ballot in the elections. Only members can do that.
And
Hey,
sitting
Bill.
on investigation committees too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Anything that changes the course of action for your lodge, or anything that pertains to the well-being of your lodge, voting, administration of funds, new members coming in, traditionally, you would have to be a member. And like Juan said, if that's something that you want to be a part of, then that's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how many past masters do you know, or we all know a guy who's like past master of this, past master of that, past master of this. He's past master of like 5 lodges, all different, all in the same district, and you're like, holy cow.
Oh yeah.
He is the master of the universe.
Yeah.
He took out a second mortgage to pay all the dues.
Yeah. So another reason that you might want to be a dual member that we haven't talked about yet, which is cross-state lines or cross-jurisdictional lines. If those both states have to allow dual memberships, you can be a member of a lodge in another state.
Right.
Which adds some interesting complexities to the
Yes, it
equation
does.
then.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I've been looking at joining Internet Lodge, number 9659, and I had a thought experiment going on about recognition, because my state and just about every other state recognizes the Grand Orient of Italy, right? But the United Grand Lodge of England only recognizes the regular Grand Lodge of Italy. So who can I visit in Italy? Anybody or nobody? You know? And then it's like, my state also allows plural membership between the two, the Prince Hall Grand Lodge here and the Grand Lodge here. And, you know, the thought experiment again is, does that mean now I can visit, if I joined the Prince Hall Grand Lodge, a lodge under the Prince Hall Grand Lodge, does that mean I can visit every Grand Lodge that's a Prince Hall Grand Lodge, or am I now restricted from visiting any lodges? You know, it's just it gets very complex very quickly. You know.
I was thinking about you today when I was reading about plural membership because I remember distinctly when we were talking about when in Rome, that when in Rome clause,
Right.
and I kept on thinking about that point. Okay, what if I am able, because here in Florida, we recognize the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Alaska, California, Connecticut. Does that mean that since we recognize those Grand Lodges, I could become a plural or a dual member of one of these lodges? And does that entitle me to be able to then sit with other states? So that's a complexity that
The
I'm not ready
the correct answer is it depends.
Yeah.
Because in Virginia, Virginia Grand Lodge recognizes Virginia Prince Hall Grand Lodge. However, you can't be the same. You can't be dual Virginia Grand Lodge and Prince Hall Grand Lodge. Now, I'm not sure what the official reasoning behind that is, except for perhaps the fact that, and our friend Matt Botts will correct me if I'm incorrect, but I believe for Virginia Prince Hall, they do not allow any sort of dual or plural membership. You can only be a member of one lodge.
And that's pretty standard through almost the entire Prince Hall.
Yeah, I was thinking about two things as you were talking about that. You know, you said it really depends, and then initially I just thought, hey, I will send a Waukegan Lodge coin to anybody who can come up with a 50-state Masonic flowchart for where you are, where you'll be accepted. Are you in this state? No. Is it this? Yes. Okay. You're good or not, right? And the other thing you guys were talking about was how confusing it can be for anybody who is kind of Second Amendment wise as far as all that stuff goes. They create these books that you can buy that basically tell you all the applicable laws anywhere you go in any state if you're traveling around, because they change from state to state. And it would be interesting to see if somebody has a publication that handles that. But then again, it changes so often.
So, Juan, you want to talk about the list of lodges in Masonic that you have?
The list of what? I'm sorry?
You were talking in the green room about the book that lists all the different lodges that we recognize.
Yes. I have this beautiful little book.
So what is that book, Juan?
This is the 2014 list of lodges Masonic. And this one is issued by the Grand Lodge of Florida. However, it is published by Pantograph Printing and Stationery Company. So there's an individual company that, whose job is to actually stay in touch with all these Grand Lodges and make sure that the information that's within this book is as current as possible.
So what does that book tell you?
This tells me what lodges I can visit, and visitors from which lodges can come and visit our lodge.
Only from a Florida perspective, right?
This one in particular, it is from Florida perspective, but it does contain a lot of information that pertains to the other states. So within it, you'll find almost that looks like footnotes. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
And in the footnotes, it'll give you specifics about the different states. Is there reciprocity in this regards or another? So it's very, very helpful.
All right. So Virginia has an equivalent book. I mean, it looks almost identical. However, the contents are different because Virginia has different recognition and different rules as well.
Yep. And every tiler of a lodge should have access to something similar to this. That's how you're able to, whenever someone comes to visit, and for example, we have a lot of visitors here in Florida from Brazil, and unless you're really up to speed with regular lodges, it's very difficult to be able to say, oh yes, you can come into the meeting with us or not. All we have to do is go to this book, find the country, and figure out if the lodge that you coming from is one that's recognized by the state of Florida.
Okay. So we talked about some of the positives to having dual membership. What about the negatives?
You're going to get asked to do a lot of stuff.
Very true.
Tell me about it.
Divorce, fighting.
How so? Yeah, go on.
So, well, you're if you're a dual member like that, unless you remember we all joke about the real lost word, right? No. Because of that, if you don't have that ability to say no sometimes, and we're always not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, and we don't want to turn somebody down, but it's always it's a shocker sometimes for some people when you say, I respectfully decline. And if you don't have that ability to do that, you really run the risk of, I'm not going to say alienating anybody, but, your family does come first. And sometimes it might sound awesome at one point. I mean, what are you going to do? Maybe your aspiration is, excuse me, you're a junior deacon in your home lodge, and another lodge comes to you and says, you have the best ritual ever. I love the way you do your stuff. Will you come and accept the invitation to become a dual member with us and be a principal officer? Well, a principal officer, for the non-Masons listening, watching, that means you are basically either the Secretary of State, the Vice President, or the President. You have to be at every meeting. In the absence of one of the others, you have to step in. It's going to create a huge necessity for you to be there. And it's not fair to your family or those brothers for you to have to pick like that. So I think you can run that risk. I'm not saying you will, but it is a possibility and something that people do need to be aware of if they're looking at doing a dual or a secondary membership.
Yep.
It's
If you had
hard.
a question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, time is always a factor, and you just have to make sure that that you do say no and you do give yourself enough time. Because the problem is, we get a lot of guys who are really excited about everything and who want to try to do everything, and they burn out, and you never hear from them again, or they do everything poorly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, burnout's a huge, huge factor. I've seen it with 2 or 3 guys just in my own district. Went from excuse me, not generally in Blue Lodge, but went from a pendant body to a pendant body to a pendant body, and there's something in every single one of them, and I just watched like their face go gray. The life's getting sucked out of them, their home life. I mean, these are friends of mine, and so we talk. The home life is struggling, but is it because of the lodge? Their commitments there? It's not because of the lodge. It's because that person isn't managing their time as well as they should, or was the home life bad before and they're trying to escape that, so they want more meetings. Whatever it is, I've seen the burnout. That's a real factor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for the brothers and people listening, it's not something that's limited just to Freemasonry. You have to learn how to say no. You cannot do absolutely everything other people want you to do, whether you're good at it or not. It's important that you are able to take priorities, and when you say yes to something, you're saying no to other things that might be more important or that should have a priority in your life. And coming in Puerto Rico, and this is just like it irks me, and I talk about this with my family all the time. There's a thing in Puerto Rico, and any Puerto Rican listening to this, please comment about this and and let us know if I'm in the right course or not. There's a thing called el ay bendito, or poor thing, and it's an attitude of like pity, where people say, "Oh, ay bendito," if you say no, you're gonna offend them, or like when someone invites you to a party and you're tired. The ay bendito attitude will make you say, "Oh, you know what? I haven't done laundry, and the kids have to go to school tomorrow, and blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm tired. I really don't feel like partying. That's an attitude that we need to be careful with and try to not have. It's perfectly fine to say no. You don't have to be rude about it. You can be courteous and still be frank and say, you know what, I'm honored that you're thinking about me for this position or for this role, but I would be doing you and my family a disservice if I said yes.
Yeah, and how many times do you say no, and then on the way home you might be thinking to yourself, and this happened to me, and I'm driving home and I go, oh my gosh, I really, really, really wanted to say yes to that. You know, like it hurts, but you got to do it. You know, you can't.
I feel like this is an intervention for me. You know, it's like just because the petition says invite and welcome doesn't mean you have to sign it.
Yeah.
Hey, did you join the Shriners yet?
No, but now the Scottish Rite is back on my radar, and it's like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's only like 150 bucks, but no, I can't. And and that's the thing. Like with me, with the dual member, right? I was a dual member. I lasted a year, right? And it's because I was working. You know, I was a past master as the marshal, right? Then I was also dealing with. Essentially, I became a dual member for this lodge because it was suffering. It was like. It was falling apart pretty quickly, right? And they owned this huge building, but it was paying for itself. But they didn't really have any management. I'm sitting here going, sure, whatever. I have time. It's only one Saturday a month, right? In the morning. But then I'm sitting here going, it's a 40-minute drive down, 40-minute drive back. I'm looking at my kids. They said, oh well, we have daycare, and it's like. But then I sit there and go, can I really put a 2-year-old in the car and expect them not to go insane, for 40 minutes and then 40 minutes back?
Well,
No, they go crazy. They go nuts. And so it's like I couldn't last that long. And, in my head it kept going, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve two masters. It's like I just can't do it. And so my time was getting taken up, and then York Wright started calling, and it's like, I'm like, oh, sorry guys, this is the end. And it was really tough because I took the dues card because in Minnesota it's kind of a weird way of getting, if you want to demit from a lodge that you're a part of that's a dual lodge, it's really weird. You have to put it on a letter, right, to send to the secretary, and then you have to attach your dues card to it, right? And it's really, it's this physical finality. You put the dues card into the paper clip, you put it into the envelope, you make it all formal, and it feels like this weird formal divorce. I mean, it's just like a dissolution of marriage. And you're like, oh my God, and so you're sitting there putting the stamp. That's like for me, I was putting the stamp on, going, I know I can find 2 more hours, baby. I love you. I love you. I'm sitting here. I'm like, oh, this divorce is so hard.
We can make it work.
Yeah, it's like I just need counseling. Let me talk to my wife.
Oh, Nick, you brought up a really good point when you started talking a little bit about the Scottish Rite and the money involved, because that's another thing that you have to consider when you're looking at becoming a dual plural member. You're going to be paying dues, and I tell you what, it's the same thing with appendant bodies. It's only $30 a year. Oh, it's only $50 a year. It's only $25 a year. Oh, it adds up so quick.
Yeah.
And
Blue Lodge, York Rite, Scottish Rite. I mean, and then if you're in the Shrine, I think
you got the clubs.
But I've heard that's expensive.
Yes, it can be. Yeah, so it's interesting because from a family standpoint, my wife considers my dues part of my own husband discretionary spending.
Right.
So it's like, well, if you want to spend your money on all those organizations, go right ahead.
No Xbox.
Hey, you just got into the AMD. That's only like $30 a year.
I am willing to make the sacrifice for AMD. I am super stoked about that.
Hoorah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
You should tell everybody about it.
Yeah. Sorry, I let the cat out of the bag.
I'll talk about it in the wrap-ups.
Awesome.
Great. On that note, it is the half-hour mark. Let's check social media before we wrap up. Jason?
Okay. Yeah, we had our buddy, Brother Lance Cates, who's in Oklahoma. He said actually to be an officer, you not only have to be a member of that lodge, but you have to have obtained your proficiency as a Master Mason. Now in Virginia, we have something called the Catechism, which is just a way that you show that you know all of the things you need to know in the first and second degrees before you progress to the third one. But in Virginia, the Master Mason's Catechism is actually optional. So I think it's interesting that you have to go through everything and show you're proficient in everything just to become like junior deacon.
Yeah. It's very similar here in Illinois. We don't have the. We have to return our catechisms and a Master Mason proficiency to hold elected offices, but not. Well, actually, that's only in my lodge. That's just a thing. But generally speaking, we don't have to. You return your first and your second catechisms, and you can be a dual member anywhere. I am presuming. I've not heard different.
Okay. Anything else, Jason?
Yeah, this is a good one for you, John. From Frank Scrobot, what if you wanted to become an officer in a new lodge, like one that was being formed?
Yeah, so specifically, yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, we talked about, to join the leadership of another lodge is one of the reasons why you would want to join, but add, at least 50% more complexity on top of that. It's a great experience having done it, but it was a lot of work to get started. Now, just on my experience, I was a past master, am a past master of my second lodge, not my first lodge. So what I actually ended up doing was diverting my attention away from my mother lodge to get the new lodge stood up. My sacrifice that I made was, and I told the officers of my mother lodge, Herndon Lodge, that although I may not make it to every meeting, if you need help with degree work, call on me, and I will be there 9 times out of 10. So while my presence may not be there on a regular basis, because I have a commitment to this other lodge, at least for that year, right, as an officer. But anything extracurricular that I can help with, that's still fair game. And that was a good balance because they did call on me for investigating committees, for degree work, and the like. But that's how I made it work. And I had to say no sometimes, and that was just it.
But that's good that you set the expectations, and that's one thing that's important. You let them know that you are available. It's not just like a mystery. It's like, where did he go? Oh, he's a master in this other lodge. What happened? There's a communication there where you let them know, I'm embarking this journey, but I'm still at your service if I am available.
Very well said. Yeah, thank you.
And the hardest thing to do is, having to say no all the time to your wife as you go up to the lodge and say, no,
to
honey,
2 lodges. Yeah.
Here. See ya, and have fun with all the children.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Jason?
Yeah, we had a brother, Donnie Dillon, ask us a little bit about whether or not we know of anyone who's actually a dual member between Prince Hall and Grand Lodge. We talked about that a little bit. I don't know of anybody, at least in Virginia, who is a dual Prince Hall and Grand Lodge member.
Nick?
Oh, I do.
Really?
I actually have a very good friend who also happens to be a Grand Lodge officer in the Prince Hall Grand Lodge, a line officer, and he's actually got his start in a lodge in my Grand Lodge, still is very active in his lodge as the secretary, but also happens to be a Grand Lodge line officer in the Prince Hall Grand Lodge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he's moving on up. He and I have been good friends for many years, almost a decade, and it's He's one of the best Masons I've ever known, and so yeah, it's very possible. And here, nobody cares. It's just Minnesota, I guess. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
I think Charlie Harper, well, he's a member of the Grand Lodge, under the Grand Lodge of Illinois as well. But he holds an honorary membership, I know for sure, in a Prince Hall Lodge, I believe.
Now I know Jason and I have talked about it. If we could join, we'd probably join both Prince Hall and mainstream Masonry in Virginia. Absolutely.
Oh, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just, again, you get into different cultures and different atmospheres, and from the visits that John and I have had with our Prince Hall brethren, with whom we work and converse, it's just a really, really neat facet of Masonry, and I would love to be a part of that.
And actually, I've thought of one other thing. If you join Internet Lodge, number 9659, the OES can never, ever ask for you to join ever again because it's considered a clandestine organization out in the United Grand Lodge of England. So there you go. Now that's an incentive.
Oh, jeez.
Hold on really quickly. The Order of the Eastern Star is clandestine under UGLE.
Yeah, it's considered unrecognized because it kind of floats towards that line of Lady Masons.
Now, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I'll just say this. I thought I heard that they've worked with women's lodges.
Because they are Lady Masons.
Oh.
They're not like Lady Masons. Hey,
Jason, what else do we have on the board?
I'm just so confused and lost right now. That, one other thing that several of the brethren on Facebook have noted is that they were raised and got their degrees in one state, and then they moved across the country. And what do you do then? Because you have a sentimental tie to your mother lodge, but you want to be able to serve as an officer or be intimately connected with the growth and the well-being of a lodge with a close proximity to where you currently reside and will be residing for however many years. So that's another really good reason to consider becoming a dual member if that particular grand jurisdiction allows it.
That's a great point.
And that's all she wrote.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I think it's time to wrap up. Let's do our final thoughts and shameless plugs, starting with Nick Johnson.
All right, my name is Nick Johnson. I run a little blog called millennialfreemason.com. It's a wonderful little place. I just released a new, very apparently controversial since I checked I didn't know this because I'm too lazy to look around, but apparently my blog gets blasted off through news bots to all these different forums, and apparently by saying that maybe chill out a little bit on Swedish Rite because they are Masonic, apparently a lot of people got PO'd about it. So sorry, it's just me. I wrote it, but it's all good. You can also find me on Reddit, reddit.com/r/Freemasonry. I'm a mod on the subreddit there. It's getting very active. Not as active as All Things Masonic, but we also aren't as crazy as All Things Masonic. That place, my eyes burn. So, anyway, and I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter, twitter.com/Nick Johnson. So thanks, guys. Oh, enough with the plugs. I should actually give some wisdom here, since I am a past master. But I would, in my mind, suggest not being a dual member. It's really tough. I mean, I don't know. I'm sticking to monogamy because it's nice to help out a lot of lodges. You could almost say it's bigamy to do that, but I can't do it. I gotta stick with one lodge because it's just too hard to, you're dealing with two different cultures, you're trying to acculturate yourself to one versus the other, and how do you deal with the problems with one, and and then you hear things coming from one lodge, but you don't want to say them to your other lodge brothers so for me, just don't do it.
You're so old-fashioned, Nick.
I know, it's like. back in my day. I should really get a top hat, and just wear it for every single one of these.
On the next episode of Sister Wives Lodges.
Oh, you stole my thunder, Juan.
Yes.
Anything else, Nick?
No,
Great.
that's about it. Thanks.
All right, Robert Johnson.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off just by saying that I'll kind of echo Nick's sentiments about dual membership. I think it's cool, and if you're like I'm out in the Great Lakes, so we have a ton of guys who come in, join our lodge, they get their degrees, and they move away. We never see them again. They continue to pay their dues, and they'll just join another appendant body. A good friend of mine, Brian Shimian, he's a member here. He's a Midnight Freemason on our blog there, and he's a member of AO Lodge in Illinois. But I believe he's also now a member in Wisconsin because he lives up there. So in those cases, I think it's appropriate. Not to say that joining another lodge in your jurisdiction is not appropriate, but I do think that it does stretch you out thin. You can kind of go science with it if you want. There's a number it's Dunbar's number, right? Dunbar's number says you can't intimately know any more than, say, 100 to 250 people at any given time. You're going to start mixing things up and stuff. If you want to get technical about it, I would worry about things like that. Maybe, what did I tell this guy? Did I not tell this person something? I'm somebody who dives in all the way, all the time. I try to know as much personal information about all my friends as I can because I want to be there for them. I want to know things about them. And I'm completely open with myself as well. So I worry a lot about stretching myself too thin because I want to give 150% of what I have to all of my friends. And as Masons, we have 6 million friends already. So that's kind of my thought on it. If you like Masonic podcasts, check out wcypodcast.com, which is my show. It's called Whence Came You? I publish episodes every Sunday night at 9:30. And check out the Midnight Freemasons blog at midnightfreemasons.org. We have 11 writers active, 12 members total, and we got 3 articles every week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Those things go out. Thanks for watching this show, and I really appreciate all the help. And if, John, before we wrap up, if you would mention Brother Harrison and the book there so that we can talk a little bit about helping this show out here.
Great. Okay. Juan.
Well, brothers, I enjoyed the conversation. I think there's one thing that comes to mind. There's an expression in Spanish that says, "El que mucho abarca, poco aprieta." He who reaches around the furthest can squeeze the least. So the more things you try to encompass, the least effective you're going to be in all of them. So start with one, and if your particular circumstance calls for a dual membership, if it doesn't cause a strain in your finances and in your family, then go right ahead and be of influence to both lodges. But if you think it's going to have a negative, if it's going to be detrimental to your finances and your family or business life, then it's probably not a good idea. And saying no might be the most prudent thing to do. So thank you as always for opening the doors of your home to us. Thank you for watching the Masonic Roundtable, and make sure you click like if you're checking us on any of the social networks. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and let us know what you think. Are you a dual member of any lodge? Are you a plural member? Are you opposed to it or in favor of it? And let us know why. Keep the conversation going, because that's why we do what we do, to get you started talking in specific topics about Masonry. So you can find more about what I do by visiting thewindingstairs.com. I just released the first installment in a series called Bridging the Gap, and it's about bridging the gap between things that are amiss or things that are not being met in the fraternity or in individual lodges. So check it out, thewindingstairs.com and freemasonryart.com, And thank you again for watching.
Great. Jason.
Thanks, John. Just some parting words of advice as far as what I have learned from my own dual lodge experience. I think John and I at least have found it's very, very hard to jump fully into two lodges at the same time, two blue lodges, especially if you're an officer at one or both. When I took the senior deacon position at Acacia, I had to realize that my duties at Patriot would just have to take a back seat. And I've been far less engaged this year at Patriot since becoming an officer at Acacia. And that's just simply because of my own sanity. I just do not have the time in the day to commit fully to both lodges. So make sure when you're thinking about whether or not you want to officially join that other lodge, make sure that you can commit the time and the manpower to both, and that you're not going to serve one over the other. So the interesting thing about Patriot Lodge is, it being a new lodge, it has very few indigenously raised Master Masons. So I would say a good 75% of the members of Patriot Lodge are dual Masons or dual members with another lodge. And so Patriot has had some issues trying to find people to fill roles in officers' chairs and in ritual. So just be very, very conscientious of your time, and know that you can always visit and hang out and do 90% of what you would do as a brother without being a member of a specific lodge.
Mm-hmm.
But the choice is ultimately up to you. So thank you so much for watching the show. Check out my blog, The 2-Foot Ruler, Masonry in Plain Language. I will have another post up soon because, as it was outed earlier in the show, right before the show tonight, I was officially invited to become the newest member of the Perfect Ashlar Allied Masonic Degrees Council. And John, I don't know the council number.
349.
349 in Herndon, Virginia, and I am super, super stoked about that. So I will have a blog post out over the next couple days talking about how excited I am to be involved in an organization that just wholly dedicates itself to Masonic research, which, as you all may know, I'm a nut about. Outside of that, www.themasonicroundtable.com. Check it out. We've got links to most of our past shows. We've got show notes. We'll put some show notes in for this week, and it's just our way of trying to give you all a glimpse into the research that each of us does when we're getting ready for the show each week. So check it out. Go ahead and like us on Facebook. Submit comments, submit questions. We absolutely love hearing from you guys, so please keep it up. Outside of that, you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week. John, back to you.
Alrighty. Thank you very much. A couple ways to support the show. I mean, other than your likes and interactions on social media. Wanted to follow up with Robert Johnson's request to talk about Steve Harrison's book. Brother Harrison has done a great favor in donating a portion of the proceeds from his book, which you can find on Amazon. We'll post show notes on our page to where you can buy that, and then we get a portion of that to help with our podcast host. Also, we still have plenty of pins left available, so if you go to www.themasonicroundtable.com, and we'll switch over and show Jason his
They're
picture.
nice and shiny.
That's a shiny pin you got there.
Yes, absolutely. They really are like the best quality pins I've ever seen, just from the workmanship that went into them.
Says the designer. Yeah.
Well, not even talking the design. So,
no, but
Which is impeccable.
yeah, we do appreciate all of you sharing pictures of it on Facebook and kind of creating the buzz. That's helped us out a ton. You really don't know the half of how much that's helped us with our strategic alignment. So this has been really great. So thank you very much for supporting the show, and continue to do so. Final thoughts. I'm going to be the one guy, as opposed to the other four guys, and say, if you have zeal for the fraternity, go all in. I'm going to say join as many lodges as you're allowed for your stay. If you can do dual or triple or quadruple, if you have zeal for the fraternity, and you take the moral lesson of dividing your time, and you have the pocketbook to afford it. We are a dying fraternity. Let's call it for what it is. That we have
No, we're not.
we have lower and lower numbers every year.
No, we're not.
Hey, well, that's another show. We'll do that. But we have fewer and fewer numbers every year, and we need energy in the fraternity. And if you are the most zealous brother in your lodge, then it's almost selfish to share it just with that one lodge. If you can help another lodge get formed, if you can help fill a gap that may be in another lodge, if you're really big into papers and research and another lodge has a gap in education, go over there and support the growth of that education by becoming a member and creating change from the inside. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say, if you have the time, the energy, and the money, go in. I mean, do it. I mean, we need guys like you to be that spark in the fraternity. With that, thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night. What do you got there? Happy birthday, Brother Brian. Peace out. Good night.